Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar with Bluehost. I am your host today, Devin Sears, and I'm joined by my coworker and friend, Tiffany Anderson. And today we're going to be talking about boosting your SEO by optimizing your content for your SEO. And we're going to get into a couple housekeeping things in just a minute before we get into the depth of today's topic. But I wanted to address something about SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And obviously, anyone that's created a website is vying for that #1 spot on Google and on other search engine results page. And there's 1,000 different ways to boost your ranking and to improve your site. And it's kind of split into two categories. We have the technical SEO side, like making sure that you don't have too many redirects or looking at your browser's cache policy, things like that. And then there's also the content side to make sure that your readers are getting the content that they want and that you're optimizing your content for SEO. And that's the part that we're going to focus on today. So I'm excited to have everyone here and joining us today. So let's get into a couple of housekeeping things before we kick it into the actual content. If we can go to the next slide. If you can hear us, find the questions box and let us know where you're joining us from. Also, if you have any questions about SEO, go ahead and drop those in there as well. We want to make sure that this is educational for you. Okay, we've got people calling in from SoCal, from Maryland, from Vermont, Atlanta. Awesome. Love that. Love seeing everyone coming in from different areas. And as I mentioned, drop if you have any specific questions about SEO that we're hoping to have answered today on this webinar. We'll do the best we can to work those questions in. A couple other pieces of information. This will be recorded. We'll be sending out a recording in the next 24 to 48 hours to everyone that registered for the webinar. So if you have to drop early, don't worry, we've got you covered. We'll be sending this out briefly after the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, when Tiffany gets through all of the content that she's prepared, we'll have a small Q&A section. So go ahead and drop your questions as we're going through. I'll probably be in the background answering them as best as I can. And any questions that I think would be beneficial to the larger group or are beyond my scope of knowledge, we'll save for Tiffany for the end and hopefully get everyone happy and excited about optimizing their sites for SEO. So with that, Tiffany, take us away.
Awesome, thanks Devin. So what we're going to be going over today is understanding the role and relationship of the search engine, how we use it, how it benefits us, and how we can use it to really strengthen our content. Beyond that, we'll talk about optimizing your on-page content efforts. There's also off-page SEO that we won't talk too much about today, but we're really going to focus on that on-page effort. And then last, we'll cover tracking your efforts. You can do so much, but if you're not able to see the results or understand what's going on, what's the point? So let's get started. Chapter 1, the role and relationship of the search engine and your content. Search engine optimization, or SEO as we'll refer to it, is a huge piece of your content, and if it's not already, it should be. A search engine's main purpose is to answer a question. So if you think, when you go to Google or Bing or one of those other ones and you type something in, whether it's, what's the best restaurant near me or where can I buy handmade ceramics, you're asking it questions, whether it's, long tail or short tail, that's what you're doing. So your content is what Google or any other search engine will use to give that answer. So those are really important things to think about as you're going through creating your content. Keywords are the gateway to that content. So we'll use keywords to help kind of drive the results and also drive the content we're creating. Search engine optimization is the method of improving your ranking within the search engine. So all these little optimization things that we're talking about, they're going to help you show up higher, show up better, and have stronger rankings within those search engine results page. Because like Devin already said, we all want to be in that #1 spot. So we will focus on figuring out how we can get to that #1 spot. A few terms you're going to hear us use today. Keywords, of course, will be the one we'll use the most. So these are little snippets, whether one word or and that's referred to as a short tail keyword, or 5 to 7 words, which we often will refer to as a long tail keyword. These are things that will help us drive content, but also help us show up within the search engine results page. Off-page SEO, as I mentioned earlier, we're really not going to talk about that today. Beyond this, off-page SEO, like Devin said, is a lot more technical. It's kind of, I like to refer to it as the things behind the scenes that no one ever really comes in contact with unless something messes up. On-page SEO is where we're really going to focus a lot of our content today. These, we like to look at them with 5 major parts of on-page SEO, which we'll really get into here in a little bit. Organic. Organic is a term that's used all throughout content marketing. It really refers to the act of not paying for results. So, on whether it's on social media or on Google, you will see ads, and that's what we refer to as paid. What we're trying to do today is build our organic strategy. So no dollars behind it, just your time and effort. SEO, of course, refers to search engine optimization, and SERP, the last one there, refers to search engine results page. So this is what you see whenever something, you input a search into Google and it pulls up all those pages of results. That is the SERP page. A couple useful SEO and content tools that we're going to talk about today, and ones that I really like. The first one will be Google Keyword Planner. This is my right-hand man whenever I'm creating content. I start using Keyword Planner early in my planning process and then kind of use it a little more sparingly throughout. We'll have a quick walkthrough of that so you guys can get a better understanding of that, and hopefully take away the tools that you need to continue using it to create your content. Grammarly is another really great content tool. This is less SEO and more strictly content. Grammarly actually doesn't have a WordPress plugin, but they have a browser extension that you can add to your internet browser. Grammarly, if you're not familiar, they focus on creating strong content. So your grammar, your punctuation, your sentence structure, those sorts of things. They make sure all of that is in a good place. So using their browser extension whenever you're creating a new piece of content is a really good way to ensure that the content itself is strong. Another plugin that I absolutely love, I've used it for a very long time, is the Yoast WordPress plugin. So Yoast is one of our partner companies. They own and manage an SEO plugin. It's really robust. It has a lot of great features, and I think it's pretty integral to a really great SEO and content strategy. There are tons of other WordPress plugins out there that you can use. Yoast is the one that I happen to have the most experience with, so that'll be the one I reference most today. And last, we'll talk about Google Search Console. Google Search Console is how we track our efforts and how we can view a lot of our progress and things like that. So content marketing versus SEO. A lot of people look at them as competing or opposites. I like to look at them as the 2 best partners that we have when creating content. Whether it's a blog, a products page, or a landing page on your website, you need these 2 elements to really get your page out there. You don't have to just pick one when it comes to creating your page. It's super important, like I keep saying, to remember both of them and understand how they work together to work for you. It's important to remember that content is what you're writing and SEO is how you make it better. Content's the actual words and SEO is more of that strategy behind your words. I also wanted to mention, this initially wasn't going to be in our presentation, but last week, Google announced their helpful content update. As most people know, Google is constantly evolving and changing. So they are rolling out an update over, the next coming weeks and months to how the Google search engine is going to view content. They are going to focus on articles that have a people first mentality. So, I think a lot of us have been to a web page or a website that you can tell isn't written with the consumer in mind. There's tons of keywords, tons of sentences that are short and choppy that maybe just don't make a lot of sense, but those people are really focused on getting their keywords in. Google is now going to somewhat deprioritize those and really focus on articles and pages and things like that that are meant for humans, that are written for a truly human audience. This doesn't mean any of the SEO best practices that Google has shared in the past are no longer valid. Keywords and using title tags and image optimization and all that stuff is still really important. Google just wants to make sure that people know that we need to have a human first approach. They also said it's really important to take into account your niche. If you're a handmade ceramics business, it makes the most sense for you to talk about handmade ceramics and maybe things 1 to 2 steps beyond. So if you're a handmade ceramics business, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for you to talk about the best restaurants in your town. But what it might make sense for you to talk about is the restaurants in your town that use your handmade ceramics. That's the kind of information that is, while not exactly your niche, it's only 1 step outside and it still makes sense for your business. I think the most important thing to understand from Google's content update is to remember that things are always changing. Google is constantly evolving. What they're saying today may not be true in a year or even 6 months. So just take into account that what they've put out now could be a little different not too long down the road, but from what it seems and the way that the industry is currently, I don't think we'll be reverting back or changing from having a people first focus with our content. All right, let's move into talking about on-page SEO. On-page SEO is the optimizing of elements on a website to help you rank higher or earn stronger or more traffic from search engines. I mentioned earlier there are 5 main pieces that we're going to discuss today about on-page SEO. These are keyword selection, which we will take a deep dive into, content optimization, internal and external linking, meta descriptions, and image optimizations. Keyword selection. We're actually going to walk through Google Keyword Planner. So here's Google Keyword Planner. You can really just type in Google Keyword Planner to your search and it will pop up. You do have to create an account. It's free. They don't charge you to use it. While the top of the screen does say Google Ads, you can understand that you don't have to pay for this service. So let's say we are getting ready to launch a new article or a new page or something like that on our website. We'd want to first create an idea. Let's say we're writing an article on our website about the or maybe not an article, but we want people to know that we are a handmade ceramics company in Austin. So we're gonna create maybe it's our about page or something like that. So we would type in handmade ceramics in Austin. Now you can type in 1 keyword. This whole thing would be your long tail keyword. We can type in that, or we can put a comma and type in additional ones. And you'll see where this is important. So let's also type in handmade plates and ceramics in Austin. Those are 3 keywords. One's a little longer than the other 2, but they will all do the trick. So you can put in tons of keywords, you can put in 1 keyword, it's whatever you're really feeling. So you put those in, and then we're gonna click Get Results. It will populate this for you, and you can see here we have first the keywords, average monthly searches, the 3-month change, year-over-year change, and competition. Those are the ones that I look at most. I would say out of those, the biggest ones, of course, keywords, monthly searches, and competition. This is not meant to be the end-all be-all for how you're creating your content. This is just to help spark more ideas. So you can see here, handmade plates and ceramics in Austin both have 100 to 1,000 searches a month. So what this means is there are between 100 and 1,000 people searching this term each month. It varies month to month, but that's the average. Month over month change, sometimes you'll see this. You see it down here that for each individual keyword, it would say, if it's trending upward or if it's flat, or sometimes you'll even see that it's trending downward. Year over year change is the same thing. Competition is another one that I really like to take into account. Again, it's not the end all be all, but understanding that the amount of competition that you have for a keyword can affect how well your content might perform. So handmade plates has a very high competition. So maybe we wouldn't target that keyword. Maybe we'd target ceramics in Austin because it has a lower competition. Again, not the end all be all. You can definitely write content that's targeting a higher level of competition, and your article could still perform really well. So those are just the keywords you provided. Google also does this great thing where they provide you with keyword ideas. And this is a part that I really love within Google. So this is where I might find some of my other title tags, my H2s and my H3s, which we will get into in a minute. You can see Austin pottery has a really high, or much higher than the initial keyword search volume, a huge year-over-year change, and it's low competition. So that is definitely a keyword that I would probably want to target or want to use within my content. Austin pottery classes, similar, people are looking for that. That may not be exactly within my what I do, but it's nice to see that in there. Maybe there's a way in a future article you could incorporate that, or maybe if you're thinking about offering classes, you can now see that people are actually searching that. So maybe you take into consideration doing some classes later on. But for now, you can really see how this can guide your content. At the top, it also offers a few ways to broaden your search. So handmade dinnerware, handmade ceramics, plates, all of those things will give you more ideas. It'll also give you, all of the data on those exact words. So that is Google Keyword Planner at a very high level. You can really see, here's a negative example of year-over-year change. It's a great, like I said, it's a great way to guide your content, but I wouldn't let this be the only thing that you use to leverage your content. Let's flip back over to our presentation. Okay, so you can use Google Keyword to help determine your topic. From there, you're going to choose your keywords. So all of those keywords that we saw, like I said, you wouldn't want to use all of them, but maybe pick 2 or 3 of them to pair with your top level keyword, or the keyword that a lot of people will refer to as their focus keyword. Choosing your keywords based on how you actually search for something is so important. Again, this goes back to what we were just talking about with Google's latest content update. We want it to feel humanized. I'm not going to search ceramics Austin, I would probably search, where can I buy ceramics in Austin, or is there a local place for ceramics in Austin? So you want to keep that in mind as you're creating your content. Google is more than smart enough, if you did say ceramics Austin somewhere in your post, to understand that you are talking about ceramics in Austin. It's not, they're not going to dock you. That doesn't count against you. They pull in all the words within your content to take that into account with how people are searching things. One of the biggest things I like to say about keywords is don't overuse them. The term keyword stuffing is one we use a lot. Keyword stuffing is the art of plugging in way too many keywords, or maybe overusing your keyword, that focus keyword, or even your secondary keywords too much. Again, it really goes back to making it feel humanized. We don't want to be reading a sentence that says, we offer the best handmade ceramics in Austin, and you can buy all of your handmade ceramics in Austin at our handmade ceramics store in Austin. That's not how we would actually speak. So you want to really keep that in mind. If it doesn't sound right when you read it out loud, it probably won't sound right to a consumer. And next, we're going to go into talking about that content optimization. The biggest thing here is using your headings. So H1, H2, and H3. There's also H4, H5, H6, but H1 through 3 are the ones that we traditionally use the most, that I use in my personal blogs, and that I always advocate for. So laying them out looks a little bit like the image there on the right. And H1 is usually your title. So, whatever your main idea is, that's going to be your H1. Beyond that, maybe, if we're talking about how to grow tomatoes, H1 could be that. Your H1 could be how to grow tomatoes. H2 might be, what kind of soil do I use to grow tomatoes? When is the best time to grow tomatoes? And those kind of things. H3s could be things like, what kind of fertilizer do I put in that soil? So it's essentially, it's like a bulleted list. And with any bulleted list, you'd have your main idea, and then your subpoints, and then supporting points with that if you needed it. So I think that's a great way to kind of look at H1s, H2s, H3s, and beyond. They do make a difference tremendously within your content and beyond. Within your on-page experience, they help your content be laid out in a prettier way, we'll say. It traditionally, within your theme, it will lay out the H1 in a larger font or a more bold font or something like that. H2s are a little smaller, and so on and so forth. So it gives your reader the ability to skim the page and follow the flow very easily. Beyond that, you can see in the screenshot on the bottom left, it also helps Google pull in the content. So the title, the H1, is A Beginner's Guide to SEO Fundamentals. This was published on the Bluehost blog recently. So that would be your H1, that's your title. That bit there in the middle in a dark gray, that is called your meta description. We'll get into that in just a little bit. But that numbered list down at the bottom, 1, 2, and 3, those are your H2s. So having H2s within your content helps Google understand a high level of what is within your content page, and then in turn they share that within their search results. So if you were to go to Google right now and type in, you could type in Guide to SEO Fundamentals, this would probably pop up, and you would see the sentences, the snippet of metadata, and then it gives you that first quick glance of what you can expect from this article. So definitely super important, not only for your on-page flow, but also within Google. Linking is a big one that sometimes gets kind of forgotten about. So there's internal linking and external linking. These are all done on your page. Off-page SEO would include external links that link back to your site. But we won't really get into that. I don't want to confuse anyone. This is the linking that we're talking about doing ourselves from our site to external places or internal places. So internal linking includes taking visitors to other places within your site. So let's say maybe you're writing a blog. Again, we'll go back to the tomatoes. You're writing a blog about how to grow tomatoes, and you mentioned something about, you grew zucchini last year and it turned out really well, and you had an article about that. You could link that article within the article about the tomatoes to really help people, one, understand that you know what you're talking about, and two, continue to keep them within your site and on another page. This a lot of times helps with your bounce rate. It also increases the time people are spending on your website. And these links don't have to be to only other articles. If you sell products, or if you have specific landing pages or things like that, you can link to those too. Really, you can. Internal links are linking to anything within your own site. External links are handled the same way. They just take people to an external page, not within your site. So let's say you're talking about those tomatoes and you say something about you've always wanted to grow a lemon tree, but you're not really sure how. Well, maybe your friendly blogger down the street is an expert in growing lemon trees and they have tons of articles around it. You could link to their page, or even a local garden or something like that, and it shows that you understand that you may not be an expert in that, but you are willing to send people somewhere else so they could understand that. External linking is super important. It often helps give you more authority about what you're writing about. You don't have to link externally, but Google definitely likes to see that you're willing to send people other places occasionally. A couple things to keep in mind, whether it's internal linking or external, you want to make sure, again, we're going back and giving it that human touch. We don't want things just thrown in there. So we want these links to be integrated organically. As I mentioned, you want the links to flow with what you're writing. You don't want it to be, if you're talking about growing tomatoes, be a post about the outfit you wore last weekend. It should continue building your authority with whatever topic you're talking about. Another important thing to remember is having relevant anchor text. So, if you're saying, last summer I grew zucchini, you could take that sentence and pull out the grew zucchini part, and that could be your anchor text. And then you would use those two words, grew zucchini, to link to that zucchini blog post you have. You always want to try and link it that way. Saying click here or view it now or that kind of thing is not a great idea, not only because it doesn't feel natural, but also if someone is using a screen reader or something like that, the screen reader will help pull it through a little bit more organically. So an important thing to keep in mind there. Also, for both internal and external links, for the most part, most themes will use a different color and underline your link within your copy. If for some reason your theme doesn't, or maybe you've set it up that way, I would really recommend highlighting your link or that anchor text with a different color text and then underlining the copy. This is pretty standard on most websites, so continuing that within your copy is really important to consumers because they already understand that that's how links work. Let's see, meta description. So I mentioned these a couple times earlier. These are the little blurbs that the search engines share. So they're not actually shown on your page whenever a consumer comes to your website or your blog post or whatever. They are mostly just shown on Google or whichever search engine you're using. These are super important because they are the main little snippet that consumers will see before they click or or don't click through to your content. It's pretty widely known that these are not a direct impact on your SEO, but at the same time, they provide you with so much more. If you go to Google and see, you know, the top 10 search results, you know, and there's 2 articles without anything listed there, you may not be as willing to click on those articles. So it's important to come up with 1 or 2 sentences. Doesn't have to be really long. I think the ideal length is between 120 and 160 characters to have within your meta description, and really explain high level quickly what you're going to be talking about within that article. And you also want to make it actionable. So think about words like learn more or click now or keep reading, those kind of things to let people know that there's more, that you have more to tell them. You also want to make sure that focus keyword or your high level keyword is included within your meta description. SEO plugins are truly the rock stars here. When I was first learning SEO, I leaned on that Yoast plugin a ton to really kind of guide me with this. Like I said, there are a lot of plugins that can help you do this. The Yoast one is just the one I'm most familiar with. They use kind of a stoplight system. It's red, yellow, green, and it tells you, or you know, suggests, make sure your focus keyword is in here. It gives you the length, and it will help you understand, you know, how long it should be and what works within that space. You definitely don't have to keep it between 100 and 120 and 160 characters, but anything beyond that is going to fall off. So Google won't show it. It'll give you the 3 little dots, and your very important words will not be shown. So keeping it within that range is always great. Let's see. Image optimization. So this is a big one, super underutilized, underrated as well. Google pulls through these things in a way that I don't think a lot of people realize. So here's a screen grab from an article from the Bluehost blog. You can see the arrow there is pointing to the alt text or alternative text. Alternative text is important for a number of reasons. This image right here, the alt text is free shipping is an e-commerce holiday shopping trend for 2021. My guess is the focus keyword for this post is probably holiday shopping trends, or maybe holiday shopping trends for 2021, or e-commerce holiday shopping, something along those lines. It's short. I usually keep it between like 3 to 6 words if I can. This one's a little longer, and that's totally okay. But this is how Google can pull in your images to their image search results. So when we look at Google, we have, you know, the all tab that has all of those search results that we're all used to seeing. But there's also the image tab. When you click that, the alt text is one of the factors that is used to pull in your image. Additionally, aside from the alt text, the image title is used to pull that in. That's something separate entirely. The alt text is also used for accessibility. So earlier I talked about your links and how someone using a screen reader or something of that nature could benefit from your links being done well. It's the same with image optimization. Just imagine if you could not physically see the content on the page and you were having someone read it to you. The alt text is what is shown within or when a screen reader is looking at the page and explaining it to someone with vision impairments or something along those lines. So making sure you have that alt text is super important. It doesn't have to be long. It's not shown on the actual page. It's kind of hidden underneath in a layer of code, but it does help. This is kind of how it looks on Google. So you see, we use the handmade ceramics example. Most of these images, my guess is the alt text either says handmade ceramics or the title tag is, you know, ceramics or handmade ceramics or locally handmade ceramics or something of that nature. And that's a way that Google pulls them through to their search page. So definitely super important to have It's often forgotten about a lot. So it's always on my checklist to make sure that that is handled. A quick overview on some of the things we just talked about. So this is going back to my growing tomatoes idea. Up at the top, you see where it says growing tomatoes. That's our H1. That is the title of this page. And you see that thought or idea is carried on throughout. The H2s, you can see it's how to plant and care for tomatoes. It's in a little bit smaller font, and you can definitely tell that's the H2. Beyond that, you see the links. All of the links are in a different color font, and they're also underlined. And these are used more than I would usually use, but they link to a lot of really great, really helpful articles. This is something, like I said, that's super important for you to do, especially if you have content that helps explain what you're trying to do within your article. And the last one is an optimized image. So you can't tell it from here, but that image is extremely optimized. Not only is it the appropriate size to be right there, but it also had an alt tag that I could easily view, and it looks great right there. So that's a very high level of a couple of the things that we talked about. Tracking your efforts. So this is a huge portion of what we're doing. Tracking your efforts are how you're going to see if what you're doing is actually working. I love using Google Search Console for this. I use the full Google Suite when it comes to Google Analytics, Keyword Planner, and Google Search Console. Google Search Console tracks your monthly performance. They really give great insight into what's going on your site in a different way than that of Google Analytics. I think Google Search Console is oftentimes a little more user-friendly and lays the content out in a much more digestible way. They'll explain to you your monthly performance, and they go into great detail of what that means, what it looks like. They'll send you your top performing pages, and they also track all this different stuff from your website. They send, my favorite part of Google Search Console is every month, without me having to trigger anything, they send me an email to essentially tell me how my site's looking. They include clicks, impressions, top growing pages, top performing pages, how people find you or which keywords they're using to find you, top performing queries, top countries, and Google search type. These are all so great because you're able to take all of the stuff that Google is telling you you're doing well, or maybe that you're not doing so great, and you can implement that in new pages, or go back and maybe update old pages to say, okay, these things aren't doing so hot, I need to fix them. Another great piece of it, like we were just mentioning, is them sharing the Google search type, so how people are coming to your site. You know, last month I saw that my personal blog received 30% of the monthly traffic was from image search. So that was really exciting to be able to see that, and then also see, you know, which images from which posts were helping bring a lot of that in. So Google Search Console is a really great way to track your SEO efforts. In conclusion, the biggest thing I hope you take away from this is keeping things natural. We want our content to always have a really great flow, to be informational, to help people understand whatever idea or topic it is that we're trying to get across without feeling too salesy. Beyond that, don't skip the small stuff. I mean, image alt tags, linking, things like that will make all the difference, and really, you know, it will really show how strong you are, not only as a marketer or a content creator, but also as a business person. So I think that is all for now, and I'll pass it back over to Devin to roll us into some Q&A.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. I did my very best to answer questions as they were coming in. So we don't have a ton of questions, a couple just logistical questions. Yes, this has been recorded and we will be sending this out in the next 24 to 48 hours for everyone that tuned in today. And we'll try to get the slides included in there as well. We had a couple questions as far as the keyword planner. I don't know if we want to get into those or not, but someone asked if you could use like Spanish lessons in Lubbock as an example for a keyword planner. Is that something that you think you want to go into, or should we look at some other questions first?
Yeah, we can do that really quick. So,
Okay, maybe while you're doing that, you can answer this other question at the same time. Someone was asking what the top of page bid is. And I mentioned that that is pay per click, and that's PPC, so that might be out of the scope of today's SEO webinar. But I think that that's probably something that they saw somewhere on the keyword planner page. That would be my guess.
Yep, it is. I see it over here. So that is, again, that's a paid effort. We are not really going to get into that today, but it is you paying to show up higher. So that is definitely not an organic strategy. So I won't jump into that. Devin, can you remind me, was it Spanish lessons in Lubbock?
Spanish lessons in Lubbock, yes. And I think you can even do Spanish lessons. And then I think that you have the ability to filter by geography as well.
Yep, exactly. So we'll do Spanish lessons in Lubbock. So right now that search doesn't have a ton, and they don't have a ton of keywords that they're recommending here. So could be a great way for you to capture even those few searches. Maybe if we add Spanish lessons, we can see some other ideas. So you see now we have all of these really great ideas. Spanish lessons near me is a great option. You don't know how much of that traffic is searched within Lubbock. Over here, I didn't really go into this, but there usually will be a spot that pops up to kind of narrow it down if there are a lot of searches by region. So that's one little bit. Devin, did you want to throw another question my way?
Yeah. Someone asked, I think this is specific about a response that they got in Yoast SEO. I'm not as familiar with Yoast SEO, so I'm only guessing this is what that's from. The question is, my content often gets keyword not found in H2, H3 subheadings as an alert. Why is that?
Interesting. I do not have an answer for that. Yoast has a super responsive team. You can reach out to them and ask them, because I have no idea. Yeah, it could. Nope, I really don't know. I'm not going to pretend to try to answer that.
That's completely fine. My guess would be that somewhere on there, either the user puts in a keyword or Yoast extracts what they believe your keyword to be. And I suspect that there's always more optimization you can do for SEO. And so I suspect that they're saying, hey, if you want to increase your SEO even more, you can make sure that that keyword, we talked about the tomato garden, is somewhere in those lower headings. So if you're writing about tomato gardening, they might want you to have how to appropriately water your tomatoes. So make sure that the tomato is still in that heading.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Someone else asked, let's see, I just saw this. We got a lot of great questions, and like I mentioned, I tried to answer a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Let's see what else we have.
If you see something that I answered that's incorrect, then feel free to correct, but I'm pretty confident on a lot of my answers. There was one, oh, here's one that, this I think is an interesting kind of duplicate content question about SEO that I've seen a lot. The question they ask, this is Anthony, they say, I have a movie review blog that connects to my YouTube channel about the same topic. Any tips on how to get better into the competition of ranking? So if I'm understanding this question correct, and Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, they have a movie review blog and the YouTube channel talks about the same thing. So how do you deal with having that duplicate content where you're talking about the same thing on different channels?
Yep. So the really cool thing about YouTube is a Google product, and YouTube, whenever you share YouTube information on your blog, it only boosts you. So I think keeping in mind that while YouTube might be the best way for you to share your content, it doesn't mean you can't take that YouTube video, put it into your blog, and maybe elaborate more on some of the other things that you didn't get to touch on or maybe forgot about in your video. I think YouTube is an incredible way. I mean, I'm super video first. So I think bringing that YouTube video into your blog and then elaborating on it helps take away some of that competition element. If most of your audience is already on YouTube, then it might be a little more difficult to bring people over to your blog. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind, those are two different streams of traffic. So while technically it can be looked at as competition, you essentially have two different ways to get traffic. So I would maybe look at it as a double way to get traffic and not as much as competition.
Awesome. And Anthony did respond in the comments that we got it right. So thank you for that feedback. Someone asked, is the Yoast plugin user friendly? I think you've got more experience with that than I do.
I started my personal blog. It's a food and travel blog over 10 years ago now. So I have been running that. Yoast was one of my first introductions into the world of SEO. I was first self-taught and then became professionally taught in SEO. So Yoast was kind of what I used to guide my content. It was the only form of SEO I was doing at first. I think it's super user friendly. They have a free version. I've always used the free version. It works tremendously. I do know, on the Bluehost blog, we have the paid version and there is a good bit more functionality. It's still just as user friendly. So I highly recommend downloading it. I think it's a great tool. It's really an integral tool for anyone on WordPress. I'm not saying that there are not other tools out there. I have just always used the Yoast blog long before I joined the Bluehost, the Yoast plugin, long before I joined the Bluehost family. So that's the one I'm probably always going to advocate for.
That's fair. Someone asked as a clarification question, you mentioned the Google console a couple times. Is that the same as the Google Ads platform, or is that two different platforms?
That's a good question. I think it's two different platforms. If you Google Search Console, it will pop up, and that will give you a little more information. I did see a question someone asked about verifying their Google Search Console, and I want to make sure I answer that too. You do have to verify your site. There is a little bit of coding or a little bit of really just taking code and dropping it in. There might actually be a WordPress plugin for it now, I can't remember, but you will have to verify your site. That is beyond my scope of fully understanding how to do that. I've done it before. I don't remember it being too difficult, but you will definitely have to verify your site. It's what connects it. With that connection, that's how you get all that personalized information, the same way if you've connected your Google Analytics platform.
Awesome. Let's see, got a few other questions. Yeah.
Sorry, I saw another one, Devin. Sometimes my blogs are not getting indexed and Google Search Console does not show any errors at all. There's actually a way to add, so let's say you went in and created a new blog just now. You take that link and you can put it into a part of, I believe it's Google Search Console, and it will crawl your site or index that page for you intentionally. I think it's within 24 hours. They may have a little bit of a different time frame now, but that's what I remember. So you can take your URL and put it in there and it will index that page for you. That is definitely, I highly recommend that. there are tons of YouTube videos on how to do that. Like I said, I was first self-taught SEO before I was professionally trained, and my understanding of it either came from joining webinars like this or from YouTubing it. So definitely a great way to do that. Let's see, do you suggest we set up our Google business profile? Absolutely. Does it help with SEO? I can't say yes or no. I think it does, especially if you're a localized producer. You know, if I'm, like I said, in Austin, I do have Austin content, but I talk about places all over the world. So it wouldn't help me as far as the location aspect, but it would could definitely help someone else. So there's that. I don't have a tutorial I can recommend specifically on Google Search Console. YouTube, like I said, has been my best friend. That could be something we dive into in a future session. So
yeah, for sure. And it seems like a lot of these questions are based around keyword, you know, how to pick the keywords, how to maybe start bidding on the keywords. So maybe if people are interested, we could look at doing a little bit of a deeper dive on pay-per-click or PPC campaigns. One of the other questions that I saw that I think could be helpful if you have an answer. Someone said that they run a gluten-free sites and they're a gluten-free website, and their concern is that most of what they're writing about involves gluten-free in the title. So how do they organically, I think their concern is that they will be viewed as keyword stuffing, even though organically it's just talking about gluten-free restaurants, gluten-free bakeries, gluten-free whatever.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. There's not a lot of way around that. You need that gluten-free in there. I think it's just using it strategically, you know, reminding yourself that there are other ways to say gluten-free. If it's your own product that you're promoting, you could say our product as opposed to saying, you know, gluten-free treat or gluten-free cookie or whatever it is. I think just remembering to maybe tweak it a little bit here and there. But truly, if that is, you know, your bread and butter, you need those words in there. Google can usually decipher that. Google is a million times smarter than any of us even realize. So I think just remembering that when you're really trying to get the information out there around your content, it's okay as far as things like that go.
Yeah, and we had an earlier question saying, hey, my Yoast plugin is suggesting that I have a keyword in my H2 heading. So I think, you know, the example that Heather, who asked this question, gave was that they're coming up with a city guide. So I think Heather, I think you could say, hey, here's my guide of my favorite gluten-free restaurants, and then list out the restaurants. You don't need to say, I mean, I guess unless the title of the restaurant has gluten-free in it, then we might have a little bit of a harder problem. But I think as long as your heading has that, and then you have a list of those restaurants, and then gluten-free bakery, and then a list of that, I think you'll be okay. And I think it's also important to remember that the goal of Google is to answer a question.
Yep.
And I think I always come back to that. And I'm gonna take the stage just for a second, Tiffany. So if you want, you can look for other questions to answer just for a second. Whenever I think about SEO, I try to think, how do I become the best answer for my clients' questions? You know, and to do that, you have to put yourself in your client's shoes a little bit and say, what questions are they asking, and how do I write content that will answer that question? And I think that's what Google's goal is. So I think sadly over the years, people have found different ways to kind of manipulate that algorithm and just say, okay, I'm going to put this word in 1,000 times. So Google recognizes that this is the best website because it mentions that term 10,000 times. But Google has since advanced, and they now look at how long people are on your website after they click on it based on their search. If they click to other websites, so they're looking at all of the ways that the traffic interacts with your website. So I know Tiffany talked about this, but I think one of the best ways to improve your SEO is just to put yourself in your client's shoes, and or your audience. If you're not selling something, put yourself in their shoes and think, what questions are they asking that I can be the answer to? And then you can write content, you can come up with videos, blog articles, whatever it might be, that answers those questions. And then when people ask those questions in Google over time, Google will recognize that you are a great answer for that question.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's important, Devin, you sparked a memory of mine from many years past. People used to literally type their keyword 100 times, put it in white font, and put it at the bottom of their webpage. And that's what got them to the top. This was over 10 years ago, and I absolutely would never recommend doing that now, because Google will look at it and be like, haha, no, and they will take your authority away, and you definitely won't show up anywhere near the first page. So it's important to remember that things are always changing. So a couple questions that I saw that I want to address. Where do we put the metadata information on WordPress? This came from Chip. I think that's a really good question. I'm going to be totally honest. I've always used the Yoast plugin. So I put it in, it's at the bottom if you're creating a post or a page. If you scroll all the way down, there is a place for you to put in your SEO title and that kind of stuff. And there's a little block for metadata. It's my understanding that most SEO plugins have something like this. If you're super savvy, you could run it into the code. I personally have no idea how to do that, but I know that's literally everything is in the code. So you could do it there. We got a couple questions around Yoast and stuff they provide. I don't know if they provide actual steps, but within the Yoast, oh, sorry, the question was, do they provide steps on how to use and set up meta descriptions? Within the Yoast plugin, it's literally whenever you're creating a page on WordPress or a blog article, the Yoast plugin pops in at the bottom and it guides you through creating each piece. We have tons of resources on the Bluehost blog about writing metadata and SEO and those kind of things. So I would look there. It's bluehost.com/resource center, or bluehost.com/blog. You can find both of them from the bluehost.com homepage, with tons and tons and tons of information there that can help you with your SEO strategy. And then I think, Karen, that question came from you, and you had another one. Do they provide similar but with alt text? It's pretty straightforward within their plugin in WordPress. So I would definitely just play around with that. What else? Let's see. Okay, what do you mean by indexing my site? So indexing is really important. That's how Google and other search engines know that your site exists. It's essentially you submit the link to them directly through Google Search Console, and they know to crawl the page. Google does this thing called crawling, and they go through and it's just kind of searches your page and sees what your tags are and those kind of things, and that's how it pulls through to the search engine results page. I cannot get super technical there. I don't know all the proper lingo. That's kind of high level. Let's see.
Let's make this the last one. If you have one more you want to answer.
Absolutely. Let's see. Shoot. Someone just asked, can I put the links in the chat? Will you let us know which links it was that you were looking for? Trying to find a good question that I think. Okay, let's go with this one. Any recommendations on the type of photos to have on homepage to help with SEO? I think it's important to have photos that relate to what you're doing. Something I didn't talk about as far as photos go, but making sure they're sized appropriately. You don't want a photo that is a massive file that's going to take forever to load. It needs to be, appropriately sized, so not super huge. It needs to relate to your business or whatever idea you're trying to share, and then you need to have those title tags and alt tags within there that accurately explain what the photo is, but also explains a little bit of what your article is. But yeah, that's that.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for joining us today. Very
Absolutely.
informative, very helpful. And thank you all for everyone that contributed and stuck around to the end. We hope that it was helpful and educational for you, and that it gives you a little bit more information as you go on your website building journey. So thanks for tuning in, and keep an eye out for the webinar next month. Talking to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.